Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous seasons 4 to 5 were almost completely different. As we know, the story ends up being set on Manticore Island, but it was almost originally set on Isla Sorna, as confirmed by some old captors news, and almost all the species were meant to look entirely different before, of course, that changed to the Manticore Island and everything was completely different. There's a lot of evidence for a ton of these creatures, all supposed to be different things. So let's go and take a look at that. The first one is Buck and Junior T-Rex were originally supposed to appear. Now, this was more when I assume the story would have been set on Isla Sorna, but why didn't they go with Isla Sorna? I assume it's because they didn't want to upset fans because, the terrain had changed so much. They added deserts, snows, and I think just destroying the Isla Sorna landscape would have really upset a lot of fans. So I think that's the main reason for Manticore Island being there. But also we know Buck and Doe were also like a thing, because if you look at it, Big E.T. and Little E.T., why was Big E.T. grey? It's because she was actually a desaturated version of Buck, and Little E.T. was meant to be Doe, which is, brown with the stripes, which makes me wonder why didn't they just use those models in Chaos Theory, because they already had the green T-Rex ready before they desaturated it. So, because they just ended up looking like Rexy clones. But yeah, I think we were meant to have Buck and Doe, which would have been very interesting, been a lot more, I think, touching to fans, seeing the Buck and Doe go up against the Spinosaurus. It would have been more thematic almost, I guess. But then we did end up getting Big E.T. and Little E.T. And whilst I didn't appreciate at the time, I kind of appreciate now for exploring more of the original T-Rexes that were there on Isla Sorna, in terms of getting to see Big E.T., one of the original T-Rexes. It's good we learned of that. But also, on the topic of T-Rexes, we do know there was meant to be a woolly mammoth in Camp Cretaceous seasons 4 to 5, and it's only recently dawned on me that Pierce was most likely supposed to be this woolly mammoth. If you think about, Pierce, the word with the tusks. What do tusks do? They pierce through objects. And think about it, what was hyped up in season 4 during the trailer, that big final shot, not the completely final shot, but it was hyped up, Big E.T. would verse Pierce, the Kentrosaurus. And sure, it was cool to have a named like Stegosaur and whatnot, but it was like, why? Pierce doesn't really stand out all that much. It's pretty forgettable, in all honesty. Like, even in Chaos Theory, they just, it became a random Kentrosaur at points. They didn't name it or anything. But imagine if it was a T-Rex against a woolly mammoth. That would have gotten butts in seats, I reckon. It would have been absolutely crazy. And then we also have the brown Pteranodon. Now, this kind of somewhat features in Camp Cretaceous seasons 4 and 5. If you look carefully, there's like some blue skin alterations and brown skin alterations in both throughout Camp Cretaceous and Chaos Theory for the Pteranodons. But we do know originally, if we look at the novels, and of course the novels aren't 100% to go off because their covers are weird, like the Majungasaurus I think has an evolution design, so it's a bit inaccurate. But the original season 1 Camp Cretaceous novel had Jurassic Park 3 brown Pteranodons on the cover, which makes you think these Pteranodon assets that got released on Manticore Island, because we know they took Isla Sorna assets, if this was set on Isla Sorna, would they have gone that JP3 Pteranodon route and had all those been Pteranodons? It makes me wonder, did someone step in and say, no, you can't do Isla Sorna, you can't ruin that? Or is it Universal saying, we don't want to touch on Isla Sorna anymore? I don't know. But then, of course, we do have the green Brachiosaurus Firecracker, which I think is an interesting one. Green, right? Because Firecracker was brown. We do know one of the toys that Darius came with in a 2-pack was originally a green baby Brachiosaurus, which was really weird, because normally they would partner them up with like iconic kind of characters like Bumpy or something. And because we already saw a brown baby Brachiosaurus in Camp Cretaceous season 3, so that by the time Firecracker came around, it really just wasn't all that special in season 4 and 5, because we'd already seen that brown Brachiosaurus. Adding a name to it, a whole different one, it looked like the same one. But if it was a green one, I feel like fans would have really appreciated that reference to the Jurassic Park 3 green Brachiosaurus, and maybe Firecracker would have stood out a bit more. I think that would have been a bit better, honestly. And then, of course, we have the Velociraptor Duo. I genuinely believe these were meant to be the Jurassic Park 3 Velociraptors. Now, there was no evidence to support this throughout Camp Cretaceous season 4 to 5. You know, not until Chaos Theory came along, where we saw these Velociraptors reintroduced. First in season 1, they were in the cargo containers where Big E.T. was, you know, so they were transferring Manticorp assets. But then those raptors end up in Malta. And from Dominion, we never saw any Velociraptors besides Blue and Beta throughout the movie, except one. There's a Velociraptor tail sticking out of one of the cages that's meant to be the Jurassic Park 3 Velociraptor as confirmed behind the scenes. And we know those two Velociraptors were in the same spot. And we didn't see a Jurassic Park 3 Velociraptor on, you know, throughout the Malta Rampage. So was those two meant to be originally, you know, the Jurassic Park 3 male and female? I think so, quite honestly. And then we have an interesting one, Green Carnotaurus. This was originally meant to be in Camp Cretaceous seasons 4 and 5, I assume, as a heavy reference to the camo Carnotaurus that, of course, was not in the movies on Isla Sorna, but in the novel, the Isla Sorna novel of Jurassic Park 2, has camouflaging green Carnotauruses. So I think this one was really interesting. Would I have loved to see it? Yes, but then they gave us it in Chaos Theory Season 1, so that was just awesome to see. We didn't see it again after that, unfortunately, but it was still cool to see they reused it. It makes me wonder, why did they reuse that? Because it looked like the exact same model they had ready, but they didn't use the Buck and Doe they created. I guess they wanted to separate Doe from Little E.T., maybe, but it just made it look like, you know, Rexy. Although they did make the model 10% smaller, which is, I think, what they did for Little E.T. too. And, but yeah, I think Toro was the better replacement Carnotaurus. It made the story more, you know, combined together. And then, of course, we have JP3 Ankylosaurus. And whilst not in Camp Cretaceous, I don't think it was taken out. It was, you know, people thought Blender looked like it. And as you could see in Chaos Theory, they did a lot of light shifting to trick people in a good way. Like the Demon Carnotaurus, they changed that a lot, even though the mold didn't look like it, but played with light a lot. And then, of course, we have the Spinosaurus and Ceratosaurus. I think they transferred the Ceratosaurus design pretty well into Camp Cretaceous, but Spinosaurus, of course, was changed a lot. I assume just because it grew up. But, I don't know. Does any of this mean anything to you guys? Please let me know in the comments. What do you think? Would you have preferred if the story was on Isla Sorna with all of the original creatures, or do you prefer they went Manticorp and didn't change Isla Sorna? Let me know. Watch up here for more, and I'll see you later. Bye, everyone.